Refugee from Laos. Good. I gotta make sure I get that right. This
Cedar
gentleman,
Bird.
our next speaker, he's a high school dropout turned diversity staffing entrepreneur. He's gonna share with you how Employee 27 changed his life, and why you need to get out of your natural environments. Please put your hands together for Stephen Mouhammat Matley.
Hello. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, first off, to John Chen and Engaging Virtual Meetings and everyone here in attendance and also virtually. This is amazing. Halfway through, if I get hot, I might take off my jacket. But my name is Stephen Matley, and this is Representation Matters. So starting off, kind of giving you a little backstory about myself, that's me. Growing up in the south side of Seattle, housing projects. That's actually probably the only family picture also across in the Pinto with my mother, father, and sister before they divorced. My sister and I never really grew up with each other, but that is a picture of my mother and us when we were younger. And I love showing this picture of my grandparents. I'm a proud seed of refugees from Laos. My father is actually Lao and Muslim, and his father was Malaysian. My mother was full Lao and Buddhist. So you can only imagine some of the things that was going on in our house. My grandparents actually, shout outs to them, my grandfather and grandmother are actually death concentration camp survivors from the Communist War. And they were able to manage to escape shortly after. Actually, there was 2 attempts for him to escape because he did serve on the Royal Lao Army as a chief of police in Laos. So just a little background of my story about the different upbringings, growing up in the ways that I did and how I did. And so you heard them pronounce my name as Stephen, but in similar other platforms, I've been able to publicly announce that my legal name is actually Mouhammat. And so a lot of people wonder, like, wow, how did you get from Stephen to Mouhammat? Well, you see, when my parents divorced, my mother wanted to make sure that I disown my identity and anything related to my father, rightfully in her mind, right? And so she decided to just have me go and run with the name Stephen, hence the reason why a lot of people know me by that. Even though I did not grow up as a person in the Muslim community, I have a lot of respect, and I believe that, Muhammad is actually one of the most common and popular names in the world, if you look that up. So early at a young age, I learned something about, your natural network, your given identity and the rules and the ways that you were brought up and what you considered normal or what you're conditioned to believe. And so a lot of this talk about representation matters is you getting outside of your natural network. Meaning, here you have middle school Stephen from the south side of Seattle trying to affiliate with what I felt was safe and what I felt was my identity. But sometimes, even your natural network may be giving you the wrong information. It's interesting because we don't ever think about that. It could be your cousin, your brother, your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunt, that could actually be giving you bad information. But because we have this loyalty or this conditioning and conformity with our identities, we believe that those are the values and those are the rules. And so this is just an example of some of the obstacles and situations and thinking that I was going through. Until I found my community. And this is why I said, get outside of your natural network. Hip hop culture is actually from dating back to African and Black culture, and so I do want to pay that respect. But in terms of expression, being able to identify and really just show who you are, the teamwork, the people. And mind you, at this time, middle school to high school Steve there, I was just kind of lost and confused. I mean, you know, you got my upbringing, you got a lot of the story rooted in wars and, you know, just a lot of questions. And one day walking home in the south side of Seattle, I saw a community center called the Union Gospel Mission, and they happened to welcome us. And I saw people doing these weird moves and listening to boom bap hip hop. And I said, wow, something resonates with me, right? And so I started to learn and practice and invite others. And the reason why that red truck is so significant to me is because during that time when gangs and division and even people that looked like me, but different ethnicity groups, we didn't always have anything to come together about. And so breakdancing and that little van was able to pick up people from different neighborhoods, different ethnicity groups. But we had one thing in common. We all loved hip hop. We all loved breakdancing. We wanted to learn, share, and create a safer place that was nonviolent during those times. Again, you need to get outside of your natural network. And how do you do that? Well, look for shared values and find the shared activities. That way you can celebrate the shared success. That's what breakdancing did for me. When I started kind of getting through my high school years, shout outs to employee 176, that's me, employee 27. And this is, you know, I'll go more into John a little bit later, but this is kind of the start of how I kind of stumbled upon this journey. I dropped out and moved out at 17 years old because I wanted to get outside of that environment. There was actually a drive-by shooting in my backyard. And at the time, there was this divide and conflict in my neighborhood. And I wanted to get out. And the only way that I could get out was becoming employee 27. By the way, I know I said I dropped out, but I did go back the next year and finish my diploma. Some of you might call me a super senior. But so that's my way of spinning it in a positive way. Again, you know, things that motivated me to do that was I met this core group of people through telemarketing. I remember being young, 17, picking up the phone, trying to figure out how to pay bills and just get out of my neighborhood in any way possible. This was my natural network. They weren't. And so through this years of us working together in the mortgage business, we learned and taught things from ground up. We started a telemarketing room, hiring people to become telemarketers with no experience. I was one of the first employees. I still remember going into my interview with a hat backwards, never been to Bellevue, and the person looked at me and said, we are full. And I said, what do you mean the training class is full? Hello. What do you mean the training class is full? Like, I thought there was an ad where you can make $60 an hour telemarketing. And he said, well, you know what? Let me just show you the pencil pitch, what you could make. And I just remember his name was Scott Kirkeberg, rest in peace. He goes, do you know what a rebuttal is? And I said, no, because I gave you an objection. I said, you know, I told you I couldn't do something and you rebutted it. And I said, no. I said, and I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people are going to come in here and tell you that they have all this experience more than myself, and I'm just this high school kid. But I will let you know that I'm a coachable person, and if you teach me, I will prove to you. And he's like, you know, it's kind of commission only, too. I was like, I'll take it. So I showed up, and from then, the rest was pretty much history. I ended up being employee 27, setting, breaking, training, documenting the whole series over the next couple years that ended up leading into my first round of entrepreneurship. So from 17 to about 19, those 2 years that we were there, when they started expanding and made some really bad moves in their expansion into the third office, which didn't include our team, they started to go the opposite direction. So we decided to go ahead and start our own mortgage refinance company with less than $5,000. Yes, we did. And I was so happy to say that we were revenue generating, and all of us have gone on to do fantastic things, such as become a pilot, working for Fortune companies, opening up our own businesses. And these were just some of the people and employees that we started the company with. So thank you, and a shout out to them. I know some people thinking like, okay, so, you came from this neighborhood, you're breakdancing, you're going into this corporate world. How on earth did you get into this stage and into this other scene of rapping? You see, when I was working, I still never ever left my passion for hip hop. Even though I stopped dancing and going into different breakdancing competitions, I still was very much involved, from buying turntables and supporting other hip hop artists, especially the underrepresented ones. And that's what we were. As a Southeast Asian in hip hop, there were very few of us representing and telling our stories. Again, here's my chance to go on stage and meet new people and travel. And so that's what we actually did. Here I have a picture with Far East Movement, who actually has gone all over the world, is a multi-platinum selling a group that we actually worked with and had a lot of performances with. Those are some of the stages and audience members that I got to look out into. And here I am talking about the South Seattle, Southeast Asian life in a rap. And it led us to opening up for other multi-platinum artists like Sean Kingston, Cassie, Eve, Rich Boy, Ryan Leslie. And I'm just so amazed. The Dream, I can go on. And I just want to say, being in the hip hop community, again, it's just another way of getting outside of your natural network. And community and culture is so key because, again, we had shared values of us loving hip hop and the elements. We had an activity, whether it be in the concerts or at a club, and we were able to celebrate as a group the milestones that we made and the amount of experiences that we gave the audience and attendees that showed up to just hear us speak and rap. During that time, while I was writing bars and working and owning my own company, I had an opportunity as a high school dropout who really was not proficient at math. I didn't realize that I learned through the mortgage industry how to read matrix, the rate matrices actually. So a lot of you who are homeowners out there may or may not know some of these things that your loan officers see, or your banks. But it's basically a rate matrix that shows you, based on your debt to income ratio or the loan amount and your credit score, what your rate should be, or what your rate you're going to be offered. And so, I don't know. Okay, so let me go backwards. What was that? Back. There you go. Sorry, I pressed the button. So during this time, I didn't realize that, the tech industry and engineers didn't know how to translate this. Because see, during the time in the mortgage business and the fax machine, I was around for that, we were getting hundreds of banks sending in their rate sheets. And you would have to learn how to decipher and define, based on a person's credit score, loan to value, and debt to income ratio, what interest rates and the banks that are offering the best rates. I was able to define this and actually apply this and write it into a database that many loan officers all over the world were using for a company called Lion Mortgage Technology Source, all the way out in Gig Harbor. Here I am again, going outside of my natural network, finding people that are willing to share and learn and be coachable, and then going outside of the fact that, wow, I didn't think I was good at math, but I actually am. And I was able to actually code and learn tech and how to QA and test it and make sure that before we publish any rates for these banks that we're representing, that they were accurate. And so that responsibility and that identity that you started stepping into. So from the mortgage business, I learned how to pivot into tech. And through that, I also learned how to pivot into telecom, because when I left the mortgage business in my first round of entrepreneurship, going into mortgage technology and having that opportunity to be in tech, because I was a high school dropout, I couldn't get a job anywhere in the tech field as much as I wanted to be in tech. So, I mean, and by the way, when you're in tech, I didn't realize that coming from the south side of Seattle and growing up on food banks and welfare systems, like you're walking in and you're seeing everyone eat bagels and coffee and not realizing that was just part of the culture that they provide you with free food. I was already sold. I mean, where do I sign up? And so that, to me, again, was just, again, what you might call a culture shock. So I was like, wow, y'all want to feed me bagels? It's the little things like that. But that experience led me in that confidence to say, well, you know what? I do belong, and I can continue to learn. So when I had an opportunity to apply at a company called Quest, aka CenturyLink, I did it. And I ended up becoming a branch leader over time. And the reason why this award was so significant to me was because I was actually being made fun of for asking for help. I wanted to learn more about telecom. It's a big, big industry and just so much to learn. I remember my first day of training when they said, if there's a day that you come in here and you don't leave saying that you learned something new, then I don't know what you did. Because I've been here X amount of years and I still don't know. And so that was really helpful, just to learn and go through that. And the reason why this award, again, is so significant is because it's kind of like, yeah, the people that bullied me and said, oh, look, he's getting extra help just for this and that. Well, guess what? It all paid off. So as much as, you know, it was not the cool thing to do to get help, it was a great thing. And it helped my resume a lot. And it gave me these awards where out of 2,000 different account consultants, I was considered a branch leader. I thought life was still going good. You know, you had telecom industry. I had a lot of this experience. And it led me to working at a consulting firm. That was actually how I got into the recruiting business. During this time, I had access to a yacht and sounder suites. And I actually said, hey, you know what? I was discriminated from becoming in tech. And I remember what it's like to feel like you don't belong in certain industries and how people will bully you. And during this time, I realized, and I read an article through an event that I went to with Washington Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Advocacy. And I realized that the amount of black and people of color, especially women in tech, were very low at a lot of these companies. From an economic development point, that's just not fair, and it's not equitable. So I wanted to do something to make it where, well, if I did it in breakdancing, if I did it in the mortgage business, I don't see why I couldn't do it in this industry. So while I had access to a lot of these privileged, earned or unearned luxuries, I said, what's good of it if I don't share it? So I decided to reach out to the community and said, who else is out there experiencing this? And I stumbled upon a group that used to go by MIT. And I was like, oh, the MIT? No. Minorities in Tech MIT. And I just thought it was amazing. And so I said, you know what, let me sponsor the first couple pizza meetups. And let's just have a conversation about how do we help and support and network with one another. And by the way, I got access to a yacht. This company gave me access to a yacht. Y'all want to go? And that's what became of that picture. And it just gave us time to conversate, to network, to say, I know how you feel. So that was kind of the start of, you know, the recruiting world that I got into. And as I started realizing, wow, there's so much community, there's so much work to do. And if I was to go and leave this organization that I was a top 5 ranked consultant, what would happen? Well, I did. And I entered my second round of entrepreneurship again. And I created a company called SM Diversity, and this is just one of our snapshots from one of our events with people that have supported us over the last 9+ years. So I'm very thankful. Again, you know, I looked at the industry and said, what is a blue ocean strategy where I don't have to compete with all these other staffing and recruiting firms? And that's what it was that I looked back and said, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, community, and culture is very important to my journey. And that's exactly how I was able to get out. So how could I pay it forward and give it to other people? And so I built a company that was focused on jobs and opportunities, But we also want to make sure that we focus on more programs to welcome veterans, people with disabilities, women, people of color, and those that maybe have overlooked. Because how could you say that you actually are hiring the best talent if you're not using every possible way to find those talents? If we don't consciously include, we will unconsciously exclude. Oh, wow, here we are. You know, through this time, we said, how do we continue to go out there and connect based on shared values, diversity, equity, inclusion, shared activities such as this hack diversity, equity, inclusion, and shared success, where we can all celebrate that we're all walking away with something that we learned from one another or shared. And that was very important during the time when we started the company 9 years ago. So thank you, Juan, for being a keynote speaker there. Speaking of high school dropout, you know, I never thought that I would ever see a college. I used to tell people the only time I've ever been in college was to perform one of my rap songs. But I did it. You know, while I was welcoming my second child, actually that's my first child, he's actually 21 now, on that cover with the Seattle Times with me there. And here we are with Ijuma Ulo and Robin DiAngelo, two best-selling authors being featured as diversity, equity, inclusion influencers of the year with Seattle Magazine. And I actually went to Cornell University for their Human Resource Business Partnership Program with a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion. And then I even took our company, SM Diversity, to University of Washington's Business Consulting Program. Again, this is me trying to lead by example of how can I get outside of my natural network and continue to get the resources and networks and the knowledge that it takes to continue to build my company up. We were able to get ourselves featured on NBC as far as Asian Pacific Islanders and sharing our stories and breaking the stereotypes. I even did a TEDx at University of Washington. And this was about psychological safety, because during that time, what people didn't know was what was really my motivation for starting a business was that I didn't feel safe at the companies that I worked for. I worked for toxic leaders and environments that I was subjected to. And so I wanted to be different. I wanted to change it. And that's actually why I started studying about psychological safety. And that was what my topic was about, was that how can we all do the right thing based on what we maybe probably been taught this wrong information by the people that we love. While all this was happening and I was investing into businesses and running my company, I got scammed. I invested nearly $250,000 in a cable telecom company that they didn't pay us back. Do y'all remember the lockdowns, COVID? You know, my family survived it, and I do know somebody that nearly lost their life, and you may as well. And why is this important that I'm sharing all this? Because collectively, that is also a shared value. It's some of the things that we share in terms of the struggles and obstacles that maybe you all face. Divorce, wasn't it some study that like half of marriages end up in that? But we still believe and we still get married. But so, you know, these are things that happen to me. And you might have saw the Employee 27, my journey, and that picture of John and I when we were young kids at 19. Well, John, 2 years ago, around this time, passed away. He was killed in a car accident. And so I always want to make sure going forward that I dedicate all of this journey to people like John, Employee 176. Because, you know, without people like John, those moments and those memories of us being competitive and sharing and collaborative in the telemarketing rooms all through those years and just keeping that hope and belief. And by the way, when I was going through all of the things from, you know, building a company and going on to these yachts and just what I consider success, to even some of the hard, tough lessons, John was part of all of that. You know, I remember when I couldn't even go grocery shopping because I was too scared to catch COVID, that John would actually go out there and do that for me. So thank you, John. And before I go any further, if you have a moment out there, virtually or in person, if you can, please scan this QR code or the URL below. Enter the code SMD. And I would love to hear your feedback. It's very important that I continue to be able to deliver this message of why more people need to get out. And the way you do it is through shared values, shared activities, and shared success. So thank you for supporting Employee 27 by giving your review. And as I wrap up here, you know, we were at the Southeast Asian Unity Conference, Youth Unity Conference, and also at the UW Medicine Behavioral Health Conference. And and thank you, John, for making sure I put this on, because it was I'm just so humbled and grateful to read the 19 pages of reviews. You know, as a dropout, I think this was probably like my first A that I got. So it felt good to be a 4.0 student at 42. So thank you if you do take the time to do that. I would appreciate that. And we will anonymously share that. Again, you need to get outside of your natural network. Look for those shared values. Find and include yourself in those shared activities. And when you have those moments of shared success, share them. Here's how I did it when I was in more recent years, through online communities. So when everyone was going through the pandemic, I said, well, while I'm here, and this is awesome that we could do this virtually, because this is kind of speaks to the proof of concept and the great outcomes that can come out of it, is how do I find and create more communities in space? So that's exactly what we did. I continued to reach out to my network in LinkedIn, to the point where I have over 25,000 first-degree connections on LinkedIn. We created the Hack Diversity, Equity, Inclusion group, and then created an online group called Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Community. It was over 2,000 members. Clubhouse was really big. I mean, Zuckerberg to Elon Musk was talking about, Elon was talking about monkeys playing video games on Clubhouse. And I was like, this is some good juice. I hope everyone else is on Clubhouse. We built a Clubhouse organically to 10,000 members at the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and only one of the few Diversity, Equity, Inclusion clubhouses, because of what was going on during the time of the lockdowns and the murder of George Floyd. We also created a Seattle Diversity, Equity, Inclusion group to make sure that we can continue to share jobs and opportunities to people that care about these values. So that's one of the things that we did during that time. So I know I have a few minutes left, and as I round it out with these couple clips, during the lockdown, and I have two more clips, during the lockdown, I realized, again, how much representation matters. So going back to my roots of music, events, and conferences, and looking for a network, I met a group called Sabadi Fest, and I helped consult some of the founding members on why it's important to showcase Southeast Asian music, culture, food to the public. And here's a little clip of what we were able to accomplish.
You are on my mind, all day, all night. I miss you all the time, baby. Get hot to yam, yeah. Missing you all day, all night. Get hot to lie down.ทุกคืนก็ยังฝันเห็นเจ้าข้างกาย You are on my mind, all day, all night, all day, all night. I won't test you, falling, but waiting for you. You're my guy, don't let you prove.
Thank you. And that was historic, and they're actually going to be doing their next one here this year as well. And it's amazing to see thousands of people from all over 50 states and worldwide come together for music, culture, community, belonging. Again, get outside of your natural network. And these are various different ethnicity groups. Going back to like when I was in the breakdancing days, various different ethnicity groups coming together to dance. And before I close out, one more last small clip. This is just a clip of one of our Hack Diversity, Equity, Inclusion events. Again, this one was, oops, sorry. Here we go. Oh, can I play it?
You might need to go to the laptop and click on it.
Oh,
and see
okay,
if that
cool.
works.
Here it is. Oop, can I click on it?
There you go.
Shout outs to Hack Diversities, Google, Microsoft, Uber, B of A, Comcast, Amazon, Starbucks, and more. Various partners that have showed up. Again, this was a co-learning, co-working environment. Thank you. So, again, I'm Stephen Matley. Oh, how do I forward this?
Now you might need to go to the computer and advance it.
Again, yay. Okay, here we go.
There you go.
Huh? Advance now?
Adam will be there. Go ahead and continue. We got you here.
Yeah, 2 more slides. Thank you, everyone. And this is the beauty of not being perfect, but striving for perfection. Represent. And employee 27, getting out, is now the CEO and founder of SM Diversity. Again, Stephen Mouhammat Matley, employee 27. I appreciate your time.
Let's get a Stephen Matley.
Super inspiring. Thank you so much. And I'm curious, you know, I felt that I was admonished quite a few times in that presentation to get outside of my natural network. So I'm curious, just as we transition into our feature keynote, that everyone kind of share, like, how is it that you're getting out of your natural network, or you know, where are you maybe inspired to go outside your natural network? What have you done recently that took you outside your natural network? Anybody from our virtual audience or in here? Rose, are you outside your natural network today? No, I think you're kind of with peers. You're kind of with your peeps, right?
But if there is a time that you were out of your natural network, please let us know. For me, one of mine, Sherry, was skateboarding, all right? I went from honors English to being one of the punk rock skateboarders in my hometown of Stockton, California. And it's what gave me, I think, a lot of confidence in doing entrepreneurial type things, different things in front of people. I actually became a sponsored amateur skateboarder. If you have ever seen the movie Dogtown and Z-Boys, I was 2 teams after that. And so there's so much value in getting out of your natural network. I also believe in international travel. I have taken all 3 of my children to the village where my grandparents grew up in China. And that trip, I think, has left an indelible mark with them. So something I think that's so valuable. Back to you, Sherry.
So interestingly enough, as we think about just coming to the marketing summit, we've been a little radio shy, kind of quiet, a lot of people off the camera. And, you know, even within a group that you may not be that different from, they're still not the people you usually talk to. So please look at the marketing summit as an opportunity to talk to some people that you're not always talking to. You're climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. That's something, right, Daryl? Very good. So I'm pretty excited. I think, are we mic'd up and ready, Mike? John?
You got to keep going to make sure the slide deck is ready, Sherry.
Oh,
so
we want to make sure. Okay.
Why don't you bring somebody up with you? You can bring
I think
Stephen with you.
Daryl's got something here.
I feel strong to say this about Stephen, who just left, Mouhammat, who you just heard from. We just talked when we were back. There he is. When I came to Seattle, the Catholic Church came to me in the 90s. I had written a paper on the Khmu and the Mien and the Hmong who were coming from Southeast Asia. And the Catholic Church saw that and said, hey, could you speak to the kids, the Khmu and Mien mostly? they don't know why they're here. Why were they coming here? And it was a big cultural change. It was extraordinary time, Mouhammat. You probably heard the stories of it. It was really amazing, taking all of that culture, coming to America, which is completely different. What kind of meat is this? It's wrapped in plastic. But anyway, I just wanted to call out Mouhammat because I remember I was very close to the Mien and the Khmu community from Laos. And I remember the entrepreneurs like you, Mouhammat, who would get money, go out and say, hey, these kids need music gear so they can go out and make money. So it was really an emotional time to see the leaders coming in. It was tough too for the men because the women came in. All the women groups in America were like, oh, come on in, honey, we'll do sewing. We'll sell your stuff at the Pike Place Market. The men were like, people say, hey, do you eat? They would joke amongst themselves, they just, I don't know English, so I don't know what to say. I just say yes to everything. So, but I remember the entrepreneurs coming out though, Mouhammat, coming out and empowering everybody, and it was really tough for the men. And so, great job what you're doing. Thank you.
Outstanding. Let's give a round of applause for our in-person audience, including